Hey y'all, this is your girl BMORE and welcome to the Dummies Cauldron.
Hey, this is your girl BMORE, and today we are going to be talking about the full moon in Sag. This full moon is going to occur or has occurred on June 11th, and during this full moon, my goodness, that's all I can say. It's a lot of changes, as you can see from, you know, what the social climate is. Um, I did do an advisory. I did do an advisory on this full moon because it does talk about very mature themes. If this is something that is too much for you, especially for all my podcast people who will be listening to the podcast, so these are paid members. If you are on those tiers, I will be talking about mature themes. If that is too much for you, please, you do not have to listen. But we will be seeing gender warring, overall moral decay, sickness, and people can be perceptive or psychic at some point. And it's just a very intense thing. This is why, I told you guys at the top of this new moon at the end of May that it's very much so important that we're grounded in reality as much as possible. Although we can get a lot of stuff done, we can be diligent. It doesn't really behoove us to be unrealistic and not grounded in anything. And I will break that down as we keep going. But I am going to read to you just a small portion. Now, this portion will also be, I will be talking about it in depth on the podcast. But here we have the full moon in a star called Ra's al Ghul. I know everyone thinks Ra's al Ghul like Batman. Okay, it's a real star, and he just happens to be named after the star. But this star deals with shamelessness. These people are just immoral and almost like a riotous nature. We're going to have this in certain constellations where it creates a disordered way of living. Now, people can be maybe these people aren't as bad. There's some form of decency here, but there is a riotous disorderliness that goes on. Issues with people of the opposite sex. So like people are really having like the idea of like I don't like you or whatever, this type of gender issues. People having perverted taste that don't look good, it don't sound good. I don't even know why you said that, dressed like that, any and all manners of things. Now granted, people are more open-minded and this can trigger humanitarianism or philosophical ideas to come to the forefront, but this also can give a poisonous matter. So what we usually find is that people's ideas are poisoned, because the star usually leads to infections, toxins, medical issues, almost like hallucinatory drugs, stimulating food, and too much of a good time. And so what we find is that some people were living too much of a riotous or disorderly life, and then they see like maybe my philosophies, maybe my ideas, where I started is not how it's going or how I want it to go. Better yet, maybe I set something in motion that it's more unhinged than anything. This can also because we're dealing with poison, this can also deal with insects, snake bites, assaults from animals, even seeing dogs that are rabid and aggressive. And again, this can also just ramp up the idea of people being affected. Things are being contaminated. Now, this does have a spiritual vibration that people can tap into to really help them to see things long term, but the vibrations are so high that it will be very hard for people to really tap into the spiritual nature that these stars can present at this time. This also represents a doctor because this is in the constellation, Ra's al Ghul is in the constellation of Ophiuchus, and so the doctor has control over the creatures. The doctor has control over the disease that is poisoning everyone. This also can deal with outright mind control or spinning these ideas to control other people. We also see these themes center around, because the star rules the groin, we also can see people, living a very out there lifestyle. And since it's in the constellation of Ophiuchus, these people are very passionate, blindly good-hearted, but because they are so blind, they are wasteful, easily seduced. This can present little happiness and unseen dangers because, again, they're not really paying attention. So we get enmity, obstacles, hostility, strife, slander, issues with morality, poisoning, and all sorts of medications. So that is just a piece of just the stars that we're going to go into. For if you're interested for the fixed stars, I will be going in depth about the fixed stars and going in depth about the mythology and how we kind of see these kind of like play out in everyday themes that kind of go on. But it is very interesting just to be alive in this time period. Again, we'll be talking about sensitive topics, and as you can see from those stars alone, it's a lot going on. So just to be sensitive to people, there will be conversations, which I will not be talking about this one because this is going to go up on YouTube, so I won't talk about these topics. This will just be for the podcast, and it'll be on my Patreon. But talking about violence and extremist behaviors, people who may have passed on, issues in fertility, those will be some of the topics that we'll be talking about because we have transits for those things. Do I think that everyone will be experiencing these things in the same way? No, because everyone's chart is different. But will these be collective things that bubble up into the global consciousness? Yes, because that's kind of how transits work. If these things are too much for you, because the moral depravity, people just all over the place, up is down, down is up, and then some people, they're going to get shocked by maybe their own extremeness, if that is too much for you, by all means, I'll catch you on the other one, okay? Because of course I'm going to have more stuff coming out for you guys, but if this is too much for y'all, just a fair warning, because this is just kind of how, I guess, the saying, the cookie is crumbling. So that is part of what we will be talking about. The main thing I would really give for this moon is it's so interesting. Moral depravity, I guess, would be the main thing that kind of is kind of running rampant, but also relationship management. That would be the main thing that I would also link this moon to, because what we see is dynamics between people that may have or may not have been managed to its best capacity. And again, because we see stars of people living too much of a riotous or disorderly lifestyle, these aren't peaceful people. These aren't people that are, establishing certain types of order, because this moon is going to be in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius, to some extent, there is some order here. This is law here. Sag or Jupiter placements rule law. It rules principle, duty. And depending on where we live and the countries we live and who our parents are that we're born to, will determine what our duties are and what our philosophies and the principles that we live under, what they are. Okay. And we have not always, based off of this transit, is why I told y'all to try to really think about things long term and be specific. Don't be silly, don't be foolish, because again, being stupid is very painful. Being ignorant is very painful, because you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes we have to learn in very hard and painful ways. So the saying, what you won't hear, you won't feel, is a real thing, because life don't change for people and life don't change for things. But this is why at the new moon in Gemini, and if you want to go back, you should go listen to it. It's very important that, when we set off to do these things, we're not so indulgent and unrealistic to get things together. We're not being so emotionally all over the place, and maybe our principles and our morals weren't correct at the time. And that is a thing, that is something that certain people are going to feel under this transit. And how you feel it really depends on where your zodiacs are, where your charts are. For some people, this can show up as like disease and illness. Maybe they're eating things that are not good. So like somebody could just get a strong case of just food poisoning, and maybe that's something like, oh, I just need to eat at home, or realistically I can't indulge in certain foods every day, and that could be a thing too. These poisons can be in any means, whether it's a metaphorically speaking or literally speaking. So I do want also people to watch what medications they take. When they hand you the little papers at your pharmacy and they tell you, here are the side effects, and you don't read them, you just throw them in your mouth. Don't do that under the transit. Actually read what you're taking. Also double check that you're not taking something, whether it's an additional supplement that will interact. I know that pharmacists are supposed to do that work. They are supposed to make sure your dosage is correct. Your doctor is also supposed to make sure your dosage is correct, and you're not eating or taking things that would interact negatively with your supplements. But because of these are the transits we have, I really want everyone to be careful. Make sure you're drinking clean water. Water can mess you up. You drink dirty water, you get runs. Make sure your water is clean. If you're not sure about how clean your water is, find out. Make sure the air that you're breathing is clean. But you want to make sure you're not being put in situations where toxins and poisons can build up, and you want to be prepared for that. Because we're getting warmer, so people want to go outside. They might want to go to parks and stuff. This is a bit of a tricky one for having to deal with animals, because animals are more ravenous, and for some people who have sensitivities or they don't have the strongest placements for animals in general in their chart, I don't know, maybe you might have an animal try to take a nip at you at the lightest, but at the worst they really could try to bite a chunk out you. So I want people to really be safe, particularly with dogs. Watch out for the dogs. They can come and get you. I'm not saying all of them are going to be wrong, I'm saying all the dogs, with your chihuahua chasing you down the street. That's not what I'm saying. I want y'all to exercise caution. So what we started off the month with of, this is good, I can get a lot of stuff done, but let me be reasonable. This is good, I can get a lot of stuff done. Let me, maybe if I need to get this done, I have to be more tight on my schedule. I can't look at my screen and doom scroll all day and then be like, why I don't have nothing done. So that's why I kind of started y'all off with a little bit of dose of reality, so that way when this full moon hit, you're not like devastated, or you kind of just really going through it right now, or you put yourself in such an extreme that recoil is some other. Okay, so that's what I really want for people. This is a very, very intense time. And again, I'll get into more in-depth or detailed reasons why I feel like it's an intense time on the Patreon podcast. I'll be talking about all of those things. But y'all just be careful. Y'all be safe and be practical. Okay? So for this full moon, full moons in nature are tension producing. The sun and the moon go at 180 degrees. So right now we have the sun in Gemini in the second house at 20 degrees, and then the moon in Sag at 20 degrees. They are forming an opposition. A thick line is forming between them from the 8th to the 2nd. That is a full moon. So it is tension producing between the sun and the moon. The sun, by default, what it is supposed to give us is vitality, certain forms of consciousness, identity, what we are awarded for, what we're known for, notoriety, fame, right? It also is linked to our fathers, and it does have a bearing on careers. When we get to the moon is a subconscious form of the mind, because it has a habitual nature. It can produce happiness, contentment, home, family, food. It's ruled by the mother. People with strong moons are very smart. They have a good memory. But it also deals with emotional states. It deals with sleeping. It's the sleeping star. So what happens when the sun and the moon create opposition? Well, the opposition will do something to the fact where it either creates a life crisis, because the sun and the moon are the luminaries. They are what we consider the mother and the father. They're the central creative force between the masculine and the feminine. So we're having a basic life issue what we see consciously and what we understand habitually or subconsciously. So when we had that new moon in Gemini, the sun is still in Gemini, what we consciously wanted to start off, because the sun and the moon were conjunct, we had a lot of force to begin or focus on Gemini pursuits. As the moon carried on through the month, we had the moon sit here. It goes through. Now, the first quarter moon we had in Virgo, which we talked about in the weekly roundup, that gave us a little bit of a struggle. But then we had the moon come into Sag. And now, what we subconsciously think about Sag, what we subconsciously think about these Jupiterian themes, our own philosophy, our ethics, our morals, that is being called into question with things that we do with our everyday knowledge, because Gemini gives us everyday or practical knowledge. So this can be argued. That's why I said this is a moral depravity. This is what we call a crisis of faith. I believed in something. I thought something was something and it was not. I thought this was like this and it wasn't. Okay? Now, depending on how delusional or how far y'all went out there will determine how devastating this could be for y'all. It really just depends on the person. And that's why I told everyone to just try to be reasonable in your pursuits and your demands. Don't be so unreasonable. And we have something we call like a dark night of the soul. And I can liken a dark night of the soul to something where what we thought or believed to be true is not true anymore. How we thought we were raised, or things that we thought were, they're just not. So here we're gonna, whatever was started in Gemini, that new moon that happened at the end of May, whatever you thought was true, you may start to reach some opposition to those thoughts, to those beliefs, especially in Sag, because Sag deals with beliefs and foresight. So we might have started something and it either lacked foresight or we didn't really understand something. We only had a little bit of information and we tried to run off with it. Because Gemini is, again, useful, practical, everyday knowledge, whereas Sag is like long form pieces of study. So that's why I told y'all it's best to come up with a plan. If you had a plan and you started that plan at that new moon when you had that stuff for Gemini and all those aspects that look good, I was like, yeah, it's easily aspected. You could get a lot done. Just be practical. Then too much of the resistance that you're getting, like most of that resistance shouldn't be that bad. You might get hit with some of your uninformed optimism should go down to informed pessimism, but the drastic shift shouldn't be so harsh. We shouldn't be like distraught because we none of this we knew. You shouldn't be caught so unaware. All right. So here we're going to have Mars trining the moon. And this gives us an ambitious, firm, resolute, quick nature. Here you're a worker. You have a lot of intense emotions and you're very creative. This can be really good for people with health problems and it can give them a great physical strength. Your confidence is contagious and this is a great sign for leadership. This is also good for projects and brainstorming. This is good for physical activities like sports, the gym. Now it can cause speeding. So for people who feel like they got a little lead foot, although we kind of have these easy transits for physicality and things like that, please just watch your driving and don't try to rush and go too fast. This also can be a placement where you can easily ask for favors or to express your ideas and people will be receptive to it. And this is overall seen as a positive emotional energy because this moon is very emotionally idealistic and Mars in Leo can give us a lot of passion. So our passion and our emotional idealism is very strong now. so we can get a lot of things done. We also have it where Mars is trine Mercury, so we're, on top of being passionate, we're very strong-minded, always learning, very quick-witted and practical, and even perceptive. People can see you as trustworthy and courageous. You can detect almost weakness in other people, and for some people they may take advantage of this. And so again, depending on what this is in your chart, you're either doing it or you're on the receiving end. But overall, this can make you a very dramatic, convincing debater. You're very creative, have a very literary mind, and can be seen as a craftsman. This can be strong themes around reporters, politicians, public relations. This is also seen as an aspect where people, whether they have children or not, they tend to be fond of children in general. This is good for financial planning, new endeavors, customer service if you work there, branding, selling ideas, being in meetings. There is an impatient, irritated nature because you feel like people don't understand you. So when people don't, you get very almost like a irritability. Just slow down, because again, there's already calculating or thinking about maybe certain things that we started off with. We could also just be out of line ourselves. We could just already be wrong ourselves. Not saying you're not a smart person, but again, depending on how well you started those ideas or how well you ran with those things last month, or really like a few weeks ago. It's really only like 2 or 3 weeks. Like 2 weeks ago, it can really determine, how well people are either going to catch on or understand you, or maybe they don't, because there's a receptiveness, but we're very passionate about people understanding us, about people being open-minded. Now the problem is people might not be as open-minded as you like, and that could be irritating. Now we also have certain aspects where there is a mutual reception between Sag and Jupiter being in Cancer. Now for Jupiter being in Cancer, I would do a whole separate video on that, because that's a year-long transit of Jupiter being here and how that can impact luck and what would be good outcomes and how to manage that, and what would be long-term things that we have to think about when dealing with it. Okay, because there's always a pro and a con to everything. But here we see Venus making what we call like a quincunx. It's in a weird angle to the moon, and so because Venus is in Taurus and it makes for commitment, and the moon in Sag makes for emotional idealism. So like people have these beliefs, and now we have to commit to some of the stuff that we put in motion, and it's a bit hard, a hard pill to swallow. I'm going to be quite frank with y'all. I'm trying not to come off a certain way, but yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow, because we have Venus in Capricorn creates a form of steadfastness and commitment that we have to now lock in on. And so this is a time where you will have to try to affirm your own ego. We can't be too egotistical where we're irritated when people don't get us, and maybe you're on the receiving end. Like people try to like see what your weaknesses are. They feel like you need to agree with them. I don't have to agree with you. My experience, or me coming to understand, I have to understand on my own. Everyone has their own mind. They have to understand things in their own time. We can't be this controlling. Hence what I talked about, the Venus and Taurus squaring Pluto, because people are controlling now. So this can be a temptation to kowtow to other people's opinion, and there could be the need to kowtow to other people's opinion of you. Now because Venus is stronger than the moon in this aspect, it's at home, there is some resistance being put up. So although people are more controlling, more manipulative, or they're jealous, or they want something they feel like is inaccessible, like I got something you have, like whether it's your clothes, maybe they jealous of the effort you put into, like, I don't know. So I've seen a couple people, they've been trying to get in shape for the summer, people growing out their hair, whatever the case may be. They want access, or they want to be able to get things from you that it's not accessible to them. Now I have seen this as also like not being able to get products that people want. So like for instance, Beyonce edge drops keep selling out and people mad. They calling the beehive bald headed. That's funny to me. But not being able to get things that are unavailable to you. Now here we can also attract people who want you to prove your love and your fidelity to them. You don't have to prove anything to them. I feel like, well, first of all, depending on your relationship dynamic will determine if that's even appropriate. The second thing is, no one has to prove anything to anyone. Either people have a history of behaving in certain ways that we like, or we don't. Either we can accept people for who they are, or we don't. Everyone has the right to come in and come out of things. Okay, so no one, if you a person, you listen to me and you say, I feel like, my boyfriend is putting me in this bind, or, my daughter is blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case may be, no one has to prove anything to them. It's either a person has shown up and proven that they've been good to you, or they haven't. And honestly, if I have to prove to you if I'm good for you, maybe you should go and we should amend this relationship, because if I'm that unreliable, then maybe we're good. Yeah, if I have to think that hard, if you're good to me, Now, the other thing is, because Venus and the moon deal with give and take, how much do you give and how much do you take on the light end? Again, some people be trying to put you in that binder, like you need to prove that you're even worth my time. Either I'm worth your time or I'm not. It's very simple. But the other thing is, excuse me. The other thing is some people feel like it's hard for them to get reciprocity in the relationship. Now, if you fall into that other topic, that other section, other group, where it's not so much I feel like a person needs to prove anything to me, it's just that I feel like I'm in a lopsided relationship. Well, then you have something to think about. Okay? You have something to think about, because Venus is strong here. So Venus means people keep giving. In a sense, Venus deals with gifts. So it's how many gifts you can receive. The gifts are strong, but the moon deals with a nurturing nature. So how cared for am I? So if you have a weak Venus, you don't get as much gifts. But let's just say your moon is strong, like your moon is in something like Taurus. You might be nurtured, but you don't get a lot of gifts. Do y'all get what I'm saying? Versus if your Venus is strong, you get a lot of gifts, and if your moon's weak, you don't get nurtured. But let's just say your Venus and your moon are both strong. You're nurtured very strongly, and you get a lot of gifts. Hopefully that makes sense. But how well your Venus and moon is a direct link to how nurtured you are, how much gifts you have, how much luxury you will be able to have, how many cars you'll be able to have. And I'm not saying you'll never get that, because again, transits are real. So if you get a transit and you get a lucky break, like how when I read the weekly roundup and I'm like, y'all can get this, but don't tell nobody or keep people out your business. Go get it and keep people out your business. Because funny enough, like I've had people ask me what's good times to purchase certain things, and yes, you can track that. Like if you want to purchase something, or you like, look, should I watch out for something, like look, you might want to wait till this moves in here, and then if you want to purchase or look into something, you should. Or the first time someone tries to sell it to you, say no and then go back again. That happens all the time. But Venus and Mars also deals with feminine dynamics. Both of these planets are feminine planets, so this can also tell us how much we've been nurtured by our mothers and how much gifts has been given to us. Some of us have not got that many gifts. Some of us have not had that much nurturing from our moms. So this aspect can also trigger, like I said, some emotional dynamics in a family front. Our families have not been that nurturing, and we have not gotten that much from them. And this can be a real triggering point. This can also feel like an obstacle for some people, but yes, if you need time to evaluate your relationships, or if you feel like someone's trying to make you prove who you are to them, you don't have to do that. If they have to, just think about it like this. No one in their right mind, if you that miserable and I feel like you really not worth nothing, no one in their right mind will have a conversation with you about it like that. If I'm that raggedy, most people logically would try to get the heck out of Dodge. Like, look, I don't know what's going on with you. Peace. Most people not. I mean, be for real. Like, how many people are going to keep somebody that's that awful around? Most people logically won't. Okay? So don't let nobody try to run no game on you. If I'm that awful, you should not even be talking to me, ma'am. You should not be talking to me, sir. If I'm that awful, you should leave me in the dust. Unless you are trying to manipulate to get something out of me. Now, the other thing is we can get obstacles here. So we can get obstacles put in the way of how much in a give and take of our relationship. Now, this can also create a thing around ill health that comes from indulgence. But I would say ill health that could come from also because these are feminine planets, and what they rule astrologically is of a feminine nature. So like ill health from eating too many things that can distort the health. Whatever that is for you, but eating too indulgent. The other thing is hormonal disturbances. You haven't been sleeping right. You've been eating all types of stuff, which can also trigger hormone disruptions. You don't go outside. You actually need the sunlight to recalibrate your hormones. Just 30 minutes a day, y'all. Just go outside for a half hour and recalibrate your hormones. Do y'all know just looking at the sunrise will recalibrate your hormones? Like, for people who have insomnia, I tell them all the time, one, go outside in general, but if you can catch that sunrise at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. and just look at the sun, not directly at it, but just look around, outside, let some of the sunlight come, and you looking at the trees and all that stuff. Don't look directly at the sun. Don't be crazy. But that will recalibrate your hormones because you're trying to sync your body to the natural circadian rhythms. That will do it. That will rewire your hormones for natural circadian rhythms. Okay? But if you're a person who has this, or you feel like you're getting the part, not the relationship part, but the ill health part, go look at your hormones. You could look at your thyroid, because some of these placements trigger thyroids, how strong your liver is, the foods we're eating. Does our food spike too much insulin? If you're one of them people, go on over there and go do your test, go to your doctor. Or if you already know what you have and you don't really need no doctor, you just been slipping and sliding, get it together on this one. Get it together. Okay? But this one is a good placement to really understand what your priorities are. Okay? As long as you understand what your priorities are, you really should be fine. Now, here we also have it in this transit where people can overreact in personal dynamics. People can be very defensive. And there's a strong need to win approval. So not only do people want us to prove who we are to them, but people can also be eager to win the approval of others. This can make people a doormat. Okay, so this is why I said moral depravity. Have some morals, have some standards. Issues in relationship dynamics, like the gender war. Look, people have to have some standards. We cannot be doormats to people. People can often also feel exploited in relationship dynamics. And sometimes people are better as friends than lovers. We have to, in this transit, we have to learn to maintain self-respect, and this can lead to a lot of growth. Listen, if you want to use this properly, you need to figure out what your values are, and do you value yourself? And this can lead to, like I said, a lot of growth. Having self-respect is very powerful. It's very powerful. Now, we're more optimistic, enthusiastic, and very open-minded. This can be good for leadership and managerial positions. Jupiter gives us direction and principles because Jupiter is exalted now, and Mars gives us energy. We're more tolerant, loyal, proud, confident. We're interested in sports, politics, and travel, and we can achieve steady income. It might not be like something really grand, but this could also, due to these behavior traits, we may get a more steady income. Again, this depends on what you have in your birth chart, but still, there's a possibility based off of the transits. We are more secure in our own beliefs, our own ideals, and this can be good for personal growth, self-promotion, but we have to be sure that we're not pushy. We can be pushy and try to push our agendas onto other people. Now, this is good for gaining through insurance and inheritance, but we have to be sure that we're not playing ourselves with a lack of planning, which is, what we talked about in the new moon in Gemini, and being cautious with activities. So we're not being extreme in our physical activities. Like, again, we can still do sports and exercise, but like extreme sports, extreme activities, and physical activities. And yes, the kind that happen at night between adults is also would consider that extreme. Those types of activities, sexual encounters, don't. This isn't really a placement for that. Especially if we saying like people have a higher level, or it's a higher rate in the strength of people catching an infection. Now, infections can come from anything, but nighttime pleasures can give certain infections too, because we're all grown. So y'all do the math, okay? This is also good for squashing beefs. Any person you have an issue with, this is good to try to resolve things. But I will say, as lucky or as positive this is for people like earning steady income, squashing beefs, exercising, all that stuff, the opportunities now come quicker. This is why when I say set up good habits, have a good routine at the beginning of the month, if the opportunities come so quick, so you get all this information, all this stuff is just coming in like boom, 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 boom. It's coming in so quick now. So either you have a stable base, even things are firm for you to be able to grab a hold of these things, or they're not. So it's a bit harder to be able to take advantage of these types of things. It's harder because we're passionate. There's a passionate generosity that kind of happens. So people can also, I know it doesn't seem like it, but there is some level of generosity where people are like abundantly giving things. And again, I will go over Jupiter and Cancer in another video where I'll talk about what it means for us for the year and what people's zodiac placements, what it's implied. Okay, but people are generously giving off things. So let's be sure that we're able to take advantage of all of the opportunities that are being afforded to us now. Mars does have some affliction to it because, again, Uranus is making a hard aspect here. It's been making it basically since Mars been in Leo, but especially now because it's getting closer and closer to an exact square with Uranus. And so people are more strong-willed now. People are contrarians, with restraint, people can have proper leadership. We don't have to always disagree on every little thing, and we also don't have to offer our opinion on everything. Like, learn to keep things to yourself. People are more accident prone, and this can be a lot of risk taking. That's why I told everyone to just take your time. Take your time. There can be a lot of risk taking. A lot. Take your time. People are more accident prone. Take it. Physical things can happen. That's why I told you, even though we're getting positive things physically, accidents can happen. And y'all know what type of physical things, not just in the gym, things you do in the bed, accidents can happen. And we don't need no whoopsies babies or whoopsies other things. So don't rush into anything like that. Be strategic. This is also a placement for violence. People being overworked. People are tempted to be reckless in love affairs, marriages. And an ordered way of life is overall rejected. So people don't want to live an orderly life. They don't want to have nothing together. They don't want to. Now, this can come from a desire to seek variety or want change, or even trying to project your individual needs or desires onto others. And because Uranus is an awakener, or it awakens wherever it is, it can awaken psychological blocks. And I know you're like, how BMORE? Because if Mars rules a certain part of the psychology or psychological evaluation, because it rules Scorpio, and Uranus is the awakener and it squares Mars, then we're awakening psychological obstacles. This can also awaken certain forms of sexuality, awaken obstacles in general, because Mars can be presented as an obstacle too. So we need to find outlets for this energy. This can be through volunteering, leadership, group efforts, technology, strategy games. But I would tell people to watch out for the road, like when you're driving. We talked about that before. Don't speed. Watch out for tools. So like, hammers, things that you cook with, like knives and, graters and stuff. Even tools at work, and fire. Because Mars rules fire, it rules the flame. So if you're doing a barbecue or something like that in these next upcoming weeks, be careful. But also watch out for enemies, siblings, friends, and just overall injury. You can get injured easier now. But also sometimes people's siblings, they either not feeling well, or the siblings are starting trouble randomly out of nowhere. Like no one even asked you, bruh. Somebody who don't like you, they just start trouble with you out of nowhere. Okay? This is great for exercise, like we brought up before. But again, please be careful, okay? Because I don't want nobody twisting their ankle or nothing. As far as in the computer and technology, when Mars and Uranus square, this can create technology problems, computer problems, issues with electricity. So try to back up everything. If you have files, or you in school, you working on something, or your job requires you to work by way of technology, make sure you have everything backed up. A backup of a backup of a backup. Because these could be transits where things just stop working. This can be a high time for stress and nervous tension. Really keep it simple. My best advice to you, all this opportunity and stuff is coming, because things are more accident prone. People can trip, hit their lip on the ground, all sorts of stuff. Just keep things simple. Just keep it simple. Don't overdo things. And I would tell you to avoid demanding people. And I talked about it a little bit earlier. People saying, prove how you feel about me. And some people will jump. Some people say, how high? They was like, oh, they tell you jump, they say how high. Like all of that. Now, that don't have to be you, but keep it simple, because that already sound like drama. Now, here we also have people act without any intention. There's no rhyme, no reason. There's just no order. Right? And people, like I said, we can be over reactionary and even emotionally reactionary. Because people are trying to figure out what your weaknesses are, people can be trying to bait you in emotional reactions that really don't have nothing to do with you. Or maybe I don't really value this like that, so I don't even see the point of me really reacting like that. So keep that in mind. Try to prioritize what's important to you. This will happen especially when people try to apply pressure, or when they feel pressure. Make sure you understand your purpose. Prioritize rest and relaxation. Because once we are able to rest and relax, you can then handle unpredictable problems that pop up or happen, whether it's like domestic or professional settings. but prioritize rest, eating well, like we talked about before with health and all this other stuff. Don't try to be overly optimistic, because in those themes, like if we do that, we can lack details, we can lack goals, and our goals aren't always managed properly. They're not always in line with what we're actually able to do. So sometimes people, again, we're having all of this, even though we're having opportunities, make sure we're not being unrealistic in the pursuit of grabbing them, because what are you actually able to do with this opportunity, and are you able to take advantage of it? That's like having, like, okay, you buy a cute outfit, right? And it's cute, like, I'm like, man, I can't wait to wear this, but like maybe you can't fit it for whatever reason, and you want to hold on to it. Why? You cannot fit it, and you probably can't sew neither to fix it neither. So it's like, what's the reason? We're being overly optimistic about what the capabilities are. So this is good for us to learn discipline and proper management. This can keep you out of financial and legal issues. If you learn discipline, what you're actually able to do in any given moment, like what am I actually able to do about this situation? Don't let people pressure you into situations where they will demand, again, that you prove your friendship or goodwill. Prove to me what I am or who I am to you. Remember, this is a moral depravity, gender warring, issues in relationships. Prove to me that you actually care about me by doing XYZ. No. And because these aspects are sitting this way, the more you do that, the more obstacles you present. The more you do that, for some people, if they're physically sensitive, for some people, they can get sick. It's too stressful. It puts too much strain on their physical health. People are trying to improvise being balanced. Like, I'm balanced, but it's so far from being realistic. It's almost like they're cosplaying this. Like, they're making it up as they go away. They're being extreme. Like, prove to me that they're trying to, like, almost like make up this whole balanced nature. Like, I'm a very balanced, fair-minded person, but they actually are being very extreme. And some people, they're even improvising emotional idealism. They're improvising their belief systems. They're making it up as they go along. That's why I say, like, people believe in and all this other stuff. And look, we don't know what they believe. We don't know where their values are. That's why I say, you do all this stuff for a person where they have you jump through a hoop, do a backflip into a split. You come to find out that it wasn't that serious for them, and your back hurting tomorrow. Now you feeling all this shame, guilt, and rejection, and I feel like if someone played me. I'm pretty sure you do. All right. And they will passionately improvise. For some of these people, they're very convincing. They seem like they open-minded. They're open. They open to all of this stuff. They're not. Now, this also really boils down to the sun and its behavior against Jupiter, particularly Gemini and Jupiter. And so here, egotistically, we're attached to our ideas. We feel like we're smart. We feel like we're clever. Now, Jupiter and Gemini, like traditionally what is able to do, particularly since there's a mutual reception, it creates a temperate nature. So we're cleverly balanced. We're skilled. People are skilled in being balanced, what we would like. But what we're finding out is that people aren't clever in balance. People aren't skilled in being balanced at all. They're not able to be unbiased and offer forms of detached judgment. So what happens when you have someone who isn't good at offering unbiased judgment? Well, these people are very haughty. They're egocentric. They do whatever they want. Due to maybe like blind optimism. Like I said, that blind optimism is a mother. But yeah, they love danger. They love extremism. People have to learn priorities. People have to really learn priorities to achieve their goals. People can be indulgent in like food, sex, drink. People can be con artists. That's why I say y'all people have to be careful. Like, they'll put all this pressure on you and they're lying. Like, you're a liar. Legit. They don't mean it. As I said, the morality is out the window. Moral depravity. There are no morals. And well, you know what? That is not true. Let me say this. Ethics is what we agree to as a culture that we all kind of stand on. But morals are subjective to a person. So maybe morally they do believe in lying. Maybe you don't. So now we have a battle of we have an issue because our morals don't align. And you're lying and saying that our morals do and they don't. Because morals are subjective. So I'll give you an example. If a couple is married, one of the people in the relationship cheat, ethically, like, these people can divorce or separate due to infidelity. That is a reason. Now, morally, one person may believe that was wrong and they should not have cheated. The other person may feel like it's not that big of a deal because their morals are different. And some people do feel like cheating not that big of a deal. That's wherever their moral compass is. I don't know. And that's their beliefs. But neither here nor there, we're having morality issues. Like I said, moral depravity. But make sure y'all are in moral harmony with people and still keep one eye open, because people be lying. These transits, they're going to be lying. People are wheelers and dealers, so they're trying to make hidden agreements, hidden bargains behind closed doors. This will deal with sports, law. People are here to make calculated risk. Now the good thing is that there could be a silver lining. People can learn, from this as well. And as far as in the calculated risk part, only do what you can complete. When you get a hit in that opportunity, and you make sure you understand what your capabilities are. Number one, like, can I actually type this up, present this, or can I actually close a deal? That's number one. But number two is only do what you actually can, like, complete. So once you understand what you're able to do on a day-to-day basis, because only you know your life, can I complete this? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then you do not do it. All right. Now, Saturn would be really good to keep this in line. And I'm going to be honest with Saturn. Saturn does square Jupiter. Now, this does have a mutual reception with the moon. Saturn does square Jupiter. And we'll talk about that again with the Jupiter being in Cancer. So it does create some restrictions or some regulations there. It's not the strongest Saturn to create some structure, but it's a Saturn that's going to get something done nonetheless. Okay. Excuse me. Here we can have people who act without, again, like we said, they kind of act without intention, or it's even things that are done just randomly without not deliberately doing something. We're very reactive at this time. Again, make sure we get a lot of sleep. Make sure we can get rest. Especially since it's very interesting because Jupiter is in an uncomfortable angle from its home. Jupiter is in Cancer, and the moon is in Sag, and this creates a 6-8 paradigm. So the 8 and 6 signs away. So this is a little bit uncomfortable. And so here we get themes between life and death, mental pain, sorrow, obstacles, the sexual organs or sex in general, the occult, support, how much support we get, so maybe some people feel like they're questioning how much support they're getting, legacies, taxes, secrets, spirituality, sleep, investigations, your partner's assets. So what your people you partner up with or have partnered up with, what do they bring to the table? Illness and surgery. And 6 signs away, this deals with enemies, kin, like people who are in close proximity, like our kinmen, relatives, disease, humiliation, debt, anxiety, servants. Now for some people this is not really literally servants, because this is just a older translation. This can sometimes even deal with co-workers or people who work in subordinate positions. So this deals with pets, tasks, the tasks that we have to do, our duties, routines, the clothes and how we wear them. So that can be like our hygiene or our clothes routine. In the subconscious mind. So we can have issues with solving our own problems. And that's why I said some people are going to, because the moon and Mercury make weird aspects to one another. The moon is in Sag, Mercury is in Cancer. That they're not in a harmonious aspect. They create obstacles. Some people are going to be prone to trying to manipulate you into solving problems for them because they don't know how to solve it themselves. I remember I was watching Batman the animated series. He was harassing this man. It was like a civilian. He was harassing him, following him, stalking him. He kept putting his face in everything. And eventually the man ends up mentally snapping because he tried to move away from it all, and then maybe a year happened, then he pops up, harassing this man again. Once that man snapped and started chasing the Joker around, he runs up to Batman like, Batman, help. It's literally one of my favorite episodes. Like, I bust out laughing watching it all the time. But the point of this is that people are starting all of this drama. Because remember, some people took opportunities, they took things, they made agreements, and they may not be able to make good on them. They made promises, they made vows. Again, marriage problems. People... We talked about the Venus in Taurus. Some people cheating. Some people wanted stuff that didn't belong to them. They felt entitled to things that did not belong to them. That was never for you. You have no right to be here. And now they want someone to fix their problems for them. I know I was really out of pocket. But do you think you can fix this for me? Even though I may even try to steal something, manipulate you into something, but do you think you can? No. Emotions and intellect can be crisscrossed. So people are not always as smart as they think that they are. Again, people are very reactionary now. So what we find that makes sense doesn't make sense. Common sense is gone. And it's really hard to keep secrets. So that's another thing. If something is supposed to be secret, if you cannot repeat it, then don't. Even if you feel like someone is well-meaning and they like you, Janice from work is nice. Janice from work, we don't have to tell her. Janice from work need to mind her business. Okay? We have to keep certain things to ourselves for our own safety, because people are going to be unhinged. Because when we see the people who are spinning and doing all this manipulation and all this spinning, then it's hard for them to keep up, because again, the common sense is unraveling. Things don't make sense. They can't fix all the problems that they've created for themselves. Some people can have word vomit without even thinking. So you tell someone a secret and they just diarrhea of the mouth. Can't keep nothing in. More people are anxious and restless. This can cause stomach issues. Now, some people, they're emotionally idealistic and they believe in generosity. And for some people, they might become anemic, or they may even become humiliated or even anxious around the idea that they believe that you should be more generous than you are. And I'm going to be quite frank, y'all should be careful of people trying to low-key destiny swipe y'all. And as a popular saying, people destiny swiping, y'all have to be careful. Because to me, the benefic planets like Jupiter, Venus, they are under siege. So you have to be very careful that people aren't trying to destiny swap you. They try to manipulate you into doing and moving things, solving problems that they didn't have no business being in. You jumped all the way on the deep end for what, boo? For what, boo? And they are unhinged. Their logic and reason and emotions don't make any sense. Being emotionally idealistic, the ideology can be anything. Positive, negative, or even a gray area. But I'm gonna tell you this: these people believe in a certain generosity that they feel entitled to. I believe that you should give this to me. No. Remember, there's an issue with Venus, give and take. There are obstacles into people getting Venus. Venus is squaring Pluto right now, and then it has a 6-8 combo with the moon. So people have given more than they received, and some people have taken more than they have given. And their job is to manipulate you into jumping through hoops for you to do all this emotional high angst stress, moving around, all of this anxious stuff, running around, fighting. That's their job. And they might be con artists. They're liars. It might not even be true. People want you to overextend without understanding how it will impact you. And even if you're not directly getting it from people, because the collective consciousness is so strong, people can send it out and you may feel it on your heart to do something without considering how it will impact you in the long run. And babies, I'm telling y'all, whatever your actions are, you need to think about how it's going to impact you long term. Because look, we're all grown, right? We understand that if people are generous to us, that is a kindness. That is a kindness. We're not owed people's generosity. We're not owed people's decency. We would like to have it as an establishment in society, but we're especially not owed that if we did some type of action and we're not thinking about how it can impact us as a person. So if I mess up and I didn't think long term about how that would impact me, my family, or whoever, and now I'm trying to, again, these people trying to harass you into fix this, help Batman. No, that has nothing to do with me. People are going to be presented in something where the people there now have to learn how to solve their own problems. Because what's the saying? If you found a way to get in it, you should find a way to get out of it. Because you didn't call me to get into it, but you did call me to help you to get out of it. And that's unnecessary labor on my part. That's unnecessary labor for me. That has nothing to do with you. My best advice is to try to work things out beforehand. Learn patience and take your time giving service and help. Do not run outside and help people just willy-nilly. Somebody trying to make you jump through hoops and, oh, can I borrow $5? Or it's like, and if you loved me, you would let me drive your car. I was just watching a Reddit story, and if I find it, I will link it. Okay, y'all might have to remind me, but the girl, she's dating this guy. They both into like off-road vehicles. Okay, so think like trucks and stuff, right? Her truck is nicer than his truck, right? Now, she makes a lot more money than he do, but she doesn't care. Now, they've had a history where he takes her car for everything, but she was kind of okay with, because his car is an older model and it's just more delicate. Okay, so short trips, they take his car. Longer trips, they take hers, right? And recently, he went out to hang out with the friends, He brings back her thousands of dollars. She said she saved up for it, but it was like a $40,000 car that she saved up for. Scratches everywhere. Now, their mutual friend tells them, like, hey, boo, he says, your car didn't have them scratches on it. He was trying to flex and try to say he could do this and that. And we was like, and he still kind of proceeded to do it. And, he kind of like fell into a ravine, a little gully little thing, he flipped the car, rolled into there, and that's why it got scratched out. Now, she ended up wilding him out. She said, that's not cool. You always take my car, you mess my car up all the time, and I spend a lot of money on the car, and I need the car for work. So he says, I'm sorry, baby, let's go out to dinner. So she play a prank. She just hit the brakes really hard, and he started yelling at her because why would you hit my brake hard? Why would you hit my brakes hard knowing how delicate my car is? I'm like, but you just scratched her car up and it rolled into a ditch and a gully and all this other stuff. Long story short, they end up breaking up because he was very immature and childish, and I guess he assumed that because she made more money than him, that she should just be okay with him breaking her stuff and being like a little damoncy. But my point is, she's offering help and service to this person. She did not care that he made less money than her, but he cared, and he felt like he should have her things. He felt entitled to her things, and he felt entitled to damaging her things. I'm not gonna lie, in the story, y'all, even his mother told her to break up with her son. She said, look, if you ain't, she said, I'm gonna call you later, Barbara, whatever her name was. She said, all right, back. She called Barbara back. Barbara said, please dump my son. He's really not good. He has behavioral problems. You need to dump him. You a nice girl. You need to dump him. I mean, she's dumping him anyway, but if you interested in a Reddit story, for people who into big cars and all that off-road stuff. But yeah, the point of the story is people feel like they feel entitled to your time, your service, and your help. They're not. So before you jump out here long term offering service, doing things for people, I need to run over here to do this, they need to do that, before you low-key accidentally destiny swapping with people due to moral depravity, moral conflicts, what I believe isn't what you believe, before you start doing all of that, learn patience. Think about how this will impact you long term. Do I really need this person in my life? Should I even be dealing with this nonsense? And if you feel like you're going to do that, you should think, why? Am I doing it to impress these people? Do I feel like I need to do it to feel needed? Because if that's what you need, baby, there's a lot of volunteer services outside. There are some poor cats who have no homes, no mothers, no fathers. There are some children who can use new school supplies. There are old people that would love for you to read a book to them in a nursing home. If you want to go be nice, drop a whole bunch of school supplies off to your local school. It's what? Elementary, middle school? Okay, I'm about to buy 2 big boxes of paper, composition notebooks, a thing of pencils, chalk, whatever they're using down there. And I'm going to drop it off. They can do what they want. Again, call before you go, because they don't want to think you like a weirdo, especially if you ain't got no kids up there. But like, call before you head down there. Like, look, y'all take donations. I'll leave it by the door, because I don't want y'all to think I'm trying to do nothing. But y'all come and check it out. I'll just leave something. I live around the area. That's stuff that you can do. Neighborhood cleanup. Like, if you feel it on your heart to offer services, do that. Don't have people pressure you or try to take advantage of the goodness and the kindness that you have. You're a devoted person. You're reasonable. You show up on time. You're just kind. Some people are con artists. Some people are just spinning around how they can get the best out of your kindness. And what I tell people, if you're going to be this nice of a person, then you need to be just as sharp as you are nice. You want to be kind, you need to be just as sharp. You can't have it both ways, because you're going to be taken advantage of. So if you want to be this kind, you need to be just as sharp. Because there are some people, when they see nice things, because this is human nature and we have to respect the nature of man. When they see nice things, they want to pluck it up. They want to steal it. Some people want to damage it. They want to deface it. This is why we have laws against people running up the nice stuff, breaking it, stealing it, vandalism. People see flowers, they rip it up out the ground. They don't even get to grab the roots to repot it. They just snatch it up out the ground and it's dead by next week. They see somebody who's beautiful and attractive. They have a beautiful personality and they're triggered. Why are you happy all the time? You get on my nerves for being content in life. Evil. There are sometimes when people see beauty, you happy, you have a beautiful, they are triggered. And that is the nature of man. Everyone doesn't like beautiful things. Some people have behavioral problems with learning how to manage, how to behave around things that are nice. Okay? Now y'all be safe out there. What's coming up? And I'll be having the podcast episode that will be up on Patreon. I'll be doing a video on Jupiter and Cancer. And then I also will be doing the rising signs for everyone. The risings, the sun, moon, and rising signs. Okay? But y'all be safe out there and don't be nobody's dummy, okay? Bye.